Dear learners, in this video we are going to study chapter 17, Locomotion and Movement of class 11th Biology NCERT. In this chapter we will cover types of movement, muscle, skeletal system, joints, disorders of muscular and skeletal system. So here we start. Movement is one of the significant features of living beings. Animals and plants exhibit a wide range of movements. Streaming of protoplasm in the unicellular organisms like amoeba is a simple form of movement. Movement of cilia, flagella, and tentacles are shown by many organisms. Human beings can move limbs, jaws, eyelids, tongues, etc. Some of the movements result in a change of place or location. Such voluntary movements are called locomotion. Walking, running, climbing, flying, and swimming are all some forms of locomotory movements. Locomotory structures need not be different from those affecting other types of movements. For example, in paramecium, cilia helps in movement of food through phytopharynx and in locomotion as well. Hydra can use its tentacles for capturing its prey and also use them for locomotion. We use limbs for changes in the body postures and locomotion as well. The above observations suggest that movements and locomotion cannot be studied separately. The two may be linked by stating that all locomotions are movements, but all movements are not locomotions. Methods of locomotion performed by animals vary with their habits all and the demand of the situation. However, locomotion is generally for search of food, shelter, mates, suitable breeding grounds, favorable climatic conditions, or to escape from enemies or predators. Types of types of movement. Here, cells of the human body exhibit three main type of movements, namely amoeboid, ciliary, and muscular. Some specialized cells in our body, like macrophages and leukocytes in blood, exhibit amoeboid movement. It is affected by pseudopodia formed by the streaming of protoplasm. Cytoskeletal elements like microfilaments are also involved in amoeboid movement. Ciliary movement occurs in most of our internal tubular organs, which are lined by ciliated epithelium. The coordinated movements of cilia and trachea help us in removing dust particles and some of the foreign substances inhaled along the atmospheric air. Passage of ova through the female reproductive tract is also facilitated by the ciliary movement. Movement of our limbs, jaws, tongue, etc. require muscular movement. The contractile property of muscles are effectively used for locomotion of other movements by human beings and majority of multicellular organisms. Locomotion requires a perfect coordinated activity of muscular, skeletal, and neural systems. In this chapter, you will learn about the types of muscles, their structure, mechanism of their contraction, and important aspects of the skeletal system. Next is muscle. You have studied in chapter 8 that cilia and flagella are the outgrowths of the cell membrane. Flagellar movement helps in the swimming of spermatozoa, maintenance of water current in the canal system of sperms, and in locomotion of protists like euglena. Muscle is a specialized tissue of mesodermal origin. About 40 to 50% of the body weight of the human adult is contributed by muscles. They have special properties like excitability, contractility, extensibility, and elasticity. Muscles have been classified using different criteria, namely location, appearance, and nature of regulation of their activities. Based on their location, three types of muscles are identified. First is skeletal, second is visceral, and third is cardiac. Skeletal muscles are closely associated with the skeletal components of the body. They have a stripped appearance under the microscope and hence are called striated muscles. As their activities are under the voluntary control of the nervous system, they are known as voluntary muscles too. They are primarily involved in locomotory actions and changes of the body postures. Visceral muscles are located in the inner walls of hollow visceral organs of the body, like the alimentary canal, reproductive tract, etc. They do not exhibit any striation and are smooth in appearance, hence, they are called smooth muscles, non striated muscle. Their activities are not under the voluntary control of nervous system and are therefore known as involuntary muscles. They exist, for example, in the transportation of food through the digestive tract and gametes through the genital tract. As the name suggests, cardiac muscles are the muscles of heart. Many cardiac muscle cells assemble in a branching pattern to form a cardiac muscle. Based on appearance, cardiac muscles are striated. They are involuntary in nature as the nervous system does not control their activities directly. Let us examine a skeletal muscle in detail to understand the structure and mechanism of contraction. Each organized skeletal muscle in our body is made up of a number of muscle bundles or fascicles held together by a common collagenous connective tissue layer called fascia. Each muscle bundle contains a number of muscle fibers. Each muscle fiber is lined by the plasma membrane called sarcolemma, enclosing the sarcoplasm. Muscle fiber is a syncytium as the sarcoplasm contains many nuclei. The endoplasmic reticular, it means sarcoplasmic reticulum of the muscle fibers, is the storehouse of calcium ions. A characteristic or feature of the muscle fiber is presence of a large number of parallelly arranged filaments in the sarcoplasm called myofilaments or myofibrils. Each myofibril has alternate dark and light bands on it. A detailed study of myofibril has established that this striated appearance is due to the distribution pattern of two important proteins, actin and myosin. The light bands contain actin and is called I band or isotropic band, whereas the dark band called A or an anisotropic band contains myosin. Both the proteins are arranged as rod like structures parallel to each other and also to the longitudinal axis of the myofibrils. Actin filaments are thinner as compared to the myosin filaments, hence are commonly called thin and thick filaments respectively. In the center of each I band is an elastic fiber called Z line which bisects it. The thin filaments are firmly attached to Z line. The thick filaments in the A band are also held together in the middle of this band by a thin fibrous membrane called M line. The A and I bands are arranged alternately throughout the length of myofibrils. The portion of myofibril between two successive Z lines is considered as the function unit of contraction and is called a sarcomere. In a resting state, the edges of thin filaments on neither state of thick filaments partially overlap the free ends of the thick filaments, leaving the central part of the thick filaments. This central part of thick filament not overlapped by thin filaments is called H zone. Next is structure of next is of structure of contractile proteins. Structure of contractile proteins. Each actin thin filament is made up of two F filamentous actins helically wound to each other. Each F actin is a polymer of monomeric G globular actins. Two filaments of another protein, tropomyosin, also run close to F actins throughout its length. A complex protein, troponin, is distributed at regular intervals of the tropomyosin. In the resting state, a subunit troponin masks the active binding sites for myosin on the actin filaments. Each myosin filament is also a polymerized protein. Many monomeric proteins called meromyosins constitute one thick filament. Each meromyosin has two important parts: a globular head with short arm and tail, the former being called the heavy meromyosin HMM, and the latter the light meromyosin LMM. The HMM component, it means the head and the short arm projects outward at the regular distance and angle from each other from the surface of a polymerized myosin filament and is known as cross arm. The globular head is an active ATPase enzyme and has binding sites for ATP and active sites of actin. Mechanism of muscle contraction. Mechanism of muscle contraction. Mechanism of muscle contraction is best explained by the sliding filament theory, which states that contraction of muscle fiber takes place by the sliding of thin filaments over the thick filaments. Muscles contraction is initiated by a signal sent by the central nervous system CNS via motor neuron. A motor neuron along with the muscle fibers connected to it constitute a motor unit. The junction between a motor neuron and the sarcolemma of the muscle fiber is called neuromuscular junction or motor end plate. A neural signal reaching this junction releases a neurotransmitter acetylcholine, which generates an action potential in the sarcolemma. This spreads through the muscle fiber and causes the release of calcium ions into the sarcoplasm. Increase in Ca++ level leads to the binding of calcium with subunit troponin on actin filaments and thereby remove the masking of active sites of for myosin. Utilizing the energy for ATP hydrolysis, the myosin head now binds to the exposed active sites on the actin to form a cross bridge. This this pulls the attached actin filament towards the center of A band. The jet line attached to these actins also pulled inwards, thereby causing a shortening of sarcomere. It means contraction. It is clear from the above step that during shortening of muscle, the contract it means contraction, the I bands get reduced, whereas the A bands retain the length. The myosin releasing the ADP and P1 goes back to its relaxed state. A new ATP binds and the cross bridges are broken. The ATP is again hydrolyzed by the myosin head and cycle of cross bridge formation. And breakage is repeated, causing the further sliding. The process continues till Ca++ ions are pumped back to the sarcoplasmic cisternae, resulting in the masking of actin filaments. This causes the return of Z lines back to their original position. It means relaxation. The reaction time of the fibers can vary in different muscles. Repeated activation of muscles can lead to the accumulation of lactic acid due to an anaerobic breakdown of glycogen in them, causing fatigue. Muscle contain a red colored oxygen storing pigment called myoglobin. Myoglobin content is high in some of the muscles, which gives a reddish appearance. Such muscles are called the red fibers. These muscles also contain plenty of mitochondria, which can utilize a large amount of oxygen stored in them for ATP production. These muscles, therefore, can also be aerobic muscles. On the other hand, some of the muscles possess very less quantity of myoglobin and therefore appear pale or whitish. These are the white fibers. Number of mitochondria are also few in them, but the amount of sarcoplasmic reticulum is high. They depend on the anaerobic process for energy. Next is skeletal system. What is there? Skeletal system. So here we start. A skeletal system consists of a framework of bones and a few cartilages. This system has a significant role in movement shown by the body. Imagine chewing food without jaw bones and walking around without the limb bones. Bone and cartilage are specialized connective tissues. The former has a very hard matrix due to a calcium salts in it. The latter has high, slightly pliable matrix due to the chondro chondroitin salts. In human beings, this system is made up of 206 bones and a few cartilages. It is grouped in two principal divisions, the axial and the appendicular skeleton. Axial skeleton comprises 80 bones distributed along the main axis of the body. The skull vertebral column, sternum, and ribs constitute axial skeleton. The skull is composed of two two sets of bones, cranial and facial, the totals of 22 bones. Cranial bones are 8 in number. They form the hard protective outer covering cranium for the brain. The facial region is made up of 40 skeletal elements which from the front part of the skull. A single U-shaped bone called hyoid is present at the base of the buccal cavity. Each middle ear contains three tiny bones, malleus, incus, stapes, collectively called ear ossicles. The skull region articulates with the superior region of the vertebral column with the help of two occipital condyles. Our vertebral column is formed by 26 serially arranged units called vertebrae and is dorsally placed. It extends from the base of the skull and constitutes the main framework of the trunk. Each vertebra has a central hollow portion through which the spinal cord passes. First vertebra is the atlas and it articulates with the occipital condyles. The vertebral column is differentiated into cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, and coccygeal regions. Starting from the skull, the number of cervical vertebrae are 7 in almost all mammals, including human beings. The vertebral column protects the spinal cord, supports the head, and serves as the point of attachment for the ribs and musculature of the back. The sternum is a flat bone on the ventral midline of the thorax. There are 12 pairs of ribs. Each rib is a thin flat bone connected dorsally to the vertebral column and ventrally to the sternum. It has two articulation surfaces on its dorsal and is hence called bicephalic. First 7 pairs of the ribs are called true ribs. Dorsally, they are attached to the thoracic vertebrae and ventrally connected to the sternum with the help of hyaline cartilage. The eighth, ninth, and 10th pairs of the ribs do not articulate directly with the sternum but join the seventh rib with the help of hyaline cartilage. These are called vertebrochondral. It means false ribs. Last two pairs, 11th and 12th of the ribs, are not connected ventrally and are therefore called floating ribs. Thoracic vertebrae, ribs, and sternum together form the rib cage. The bones of the limbs, along with their girdless, constitute the appendicular skeleton. Each limb is made up of 30 bones. The bones of the hand forelimb are humerus, radius, and ulna, carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges, femur, tibia and fibula, tarsals, metatarsals, uh, and phalanges are the bones of the legs. A cup-shaped bone called patella cover the knee ventrally. Kneecap, pectoral and pelvic girdle bones help in articulation of the upper and lower limbs respectively with the axial skeleton. Each girdle is formed by of two halves. Each half of pectoral girdle consists of a clavicle and a scapula. Scapula is a large triangular flat bone situated in the dorsal part. of the thorax between the second and the seventh ribs. The dorsal flat triangular body of the scapula has a slightly elevated ridge called the spine, which projects as a flat expanded process called the acromion. The clavicle articulates with this. Below the acromion is a depression called glenoid cavity, which articulates with the head of the humerus to form the soldier joint. Each clavicle is a long, slender bone with two curvatures. This bone is commonly called the collar bone. Pelvic girdle consists of two coxal bones. Each coxal bone is formed by the fusion of three bones: ilium, ischium, and pubis. At the point of fusion, the above bones is cavity called actabulum, to which the thigh bone articulates. The two halves of the pelvic girdle meet ventrally to form the pubic symphysis containing fibrous cartilage. Joints. Joints are essential for all types of movements involving the bony parts of the body. Locomotory movements are no exception to this. Joints are points of contact between bones or between bones and cartilages. Force generated by the muscles is used to carry out movement through joints, where the joint acts a fulcrum. The movability at these joints vary depending on different factors. Joints have been classified into three major structural forms, namely fibrous, cartilaginous, and synovial. Fibrous joints do not allow any movement. This type of joint is shown by a flat skull bones which fuse end to end with the help of dense fibrous connective tissues in the form of sutures. To form the cranium in cartilaginous joints, the bones involved are joined together with the help of cartilages. The joint between the adjacent vertebrae in the vertebral column is of this pattern and it permits limited movements. Synovial joints are characterized by the presence of fluid-filled synovial cavity between the articulating surfaces of two bones. Such an arrangement allows considerable movement. These joints help in locomotion and many other movements. Ball and socket joint between humerus and pectoral girdle. Hinge joint, knee joint, pivot joint between the atlas and axis. Gliding joint between the carpals and saddle joint between the carpal and metacarpal of the thumb are some examples. Disorders of muscular and skeletal system. Myasthenia gravis, autoimmune disorder affecting neuromuscular junction, leading to the fatigue, weakening, and paralysis of skeletal muscle. Muscular dystrophy, progressive degeneration of skeletal muscles, mostly due to genetic disorder. Tetany, rapid spasms in muscle due to a low Ca++ in body fluid. Arthritis, inflammation of joints. Osteoporosis, age related disorder characterized by decreased bone mass and increased chances of fractures. Decreased level of estrogen is a common cause. Gut inflammation of joints due to accumulation of uric acid and crystals. So, chapter is finished.